I want to welcome you to the May 25th, 2023 Audit and Finance Committee. We'll start this evening by, first of all, just thanking God for this beautiful day and all of this sunshine. It's just really marvelous. I have Ms. Kennedy take attendance now.
Sure, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Willingham?
Present.
Peter?
Here.
Bergdorf?
Here.
Clay?
Here.
Grimm?
Here.
Mr. Joyce and Ms. Lakakis are excused. Mayo?
Here.
And Camiso.
Here.
You have 7 present, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. I just want to welcome Mr. Camiso this evening to the Audit and Finance Committee. Thank you very much for attendance. All right, let us begin. Ms. Kennedy?
The first item is approving the previous minutes.
I make a motion for that, Madam Chair.
I got a motion. I got a second from Mr. excuse me, from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Item 2 is establishing the USA 250 Commission for the celebration of the 250th year following the American Revolution and independence of the United States. Mr. Pearley's here this evening.
Hello, Mr. Hurley. How are
Madam
you?
Chairman, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to appear this evening. This measure is designed to bring Albany County in line with any number of other communities throughout the state and the nation that have established local commissions to celebrate the semi-quincentennial of the American Revolution, or in shorter words, the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. I've long thought that our rich heritage here in Albany County is something that's underappreciated in terms of sort of the value of life in the capital region, and it certainly is underutilized when it comes to driving tourism dollars and economic development throughout the county. In preparing for this, we looked at the National Semi-Cinquentennial Commission issued a guide for local communities, and they noted there in having some suggestions as to how communities might commemorate. They gave an acknowledgement that not many communities across the nation would have historic buildings that have a direct connection to the American Revolution, and probably fewer even than that would have battlefields in their own backyards. The fact of the matter is, here in Albany County, we do, in abundance. We have a number of revolutionary sites, and happily they're spread in politically pleasing fashion throughout the county. The 2 most noteworthy, of course, are General Schuyler's home in the South End, General Tenbrook's home in Arbor Hill, and the site of the only battle fought in Albany County, which was the Battle of the Normanskill near Towasenta in Towasenta Park in the town of Guilderland. I just note that was a battle in which local loyalists had organized in a plan to go help Burgoyne in his advance onto taking Albany. They were intercepted by a group of Continental soldiers who were also on their way to Saratoga to stop Burgoyne, and the local Tories were routed. A couple people killed, and of course we went on to win the Battle of Saratoga. I think also noteworthy, the Continental soldiers were predominantly African American troops who won that battle for the Americans here in Albany County. So it's obvious we have a lot to celebrate here, we have a lot to commemorate, we have a lot to promote. This measure originally was introduced with the idea to working with schools, the local historical societies, and then working with the county executive's office. They asked me to revise it so as to include a larger focus on economic development, particularly the work that Discover Albany is doing and will be doing in relation to the commemoration of the 250th anniversary. And just one final note, I would note that Majority Leader Feeney suggested that in the makeup of the commission that Mr. Clay, as chairman of the African American Caucus, be given an appointment, and I was certainly amenable to that good suggestion. And with that, Majority Leader Feeney agreed to go on as a primary sponsor of this measure. And last night at the Law Committee, all the members of both parties co-sponsored. So I think we're in an agreement that we have a lot to celebrate, a lot to promote here in Albany County.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. I enjoyed your history lesson. I really did. I was history buff when I was in school. I did very well in that. So you're going to get a motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just want to thank Mr. Pearley for bringing this up, as well as working with the Majority Leader and also the county exec. Mr. Pearley was also part of the COVID Economic Recovery Task Force, and has worked sort of tirelessly to also do mixes of tourism, agro-tourism, was a big part of it. Historical tourism was also great. I think it's a great bill, and as Mr. Curley said, all of us joined in on sponsoring last night in law, and I'd certainly make a motion to move that.
Did I get a second? I got a motion, excuse me, I got a motion, and I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Do you leave an appropriation with that, or does that come later?
It's envisioned that it will come later,
Okay.
so more to come. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Good work, Jeff.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Item 3 is establishing a voter rights disclosure policy for all polling places managed by the Albany County Board of Elections. Mr. Peters here this evening.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Madam Chair. Last night, this passed unanimously out of committee. Obviously, this is just a suggestion of adding some voter commonly asked FAQs to the Voting Bill of Rights, which is supposed to be prominently displayed at a polling site. It also adds a request to the Board of Elections to submit that as a change to the Board of Elections statewide, which has the authority to do so. It also specifies that this would be on every entrance and exit. It also establishes an FAQ QR code that could go to a landing page. All of this, I want to thank the Commissioners of the Board of Elections for sending along suggestions. There may be some more suggestions going on as that goes, but again, this is a suggestion. These are a request to go to our county commissioners, who then, based on their approval, would send that on to the state, who would give final approval.
I want to ask one other question.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Bergdorf.
Yeah, I just want to concur with what Mr. Peters said. I've spoken with our election commissioner, and this will go to the 2 election commissioners. They'll agree on what they would like to do, and if that, whatever that common denominator is, they will send to the State Board of Elections to see if it can be done. Accurate?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And the only 2 other things I'll add is a request is if it's dramatically changed or anything to let us know based on what the intent of. And then there's also a $5,000 allocation to help with any printing costs, so it's not coming out of an existing budget line.
I heard 2 yeses. I will move the resolution.
First of all, I want to thank Mr. Peter for this Voters' Bill of Rights, but I do have a question for either one of the commissioners here. I do see here where it says permanent registration, and I learned this during the petition process. And could you just explain that, one of you? It says here, I'll just read this real quick. Once registered to vote, you continue to remain qualified to vote from an address from within your county or city. So when you go to vote, what does that mean?
So what it's, I think, trying to say, not probably in the most articulate way, I'm sure the statement can be clarified, is essentially you are actually always permanently registered to vote from a qualifying address. In other words, we are required under the law every year to issue mail check cards, which are those yellow cards under the law. We send them every April, May. And what that does is verifies to the Board of Elections legally that in fact the address that the voter stated to us on the registration form is still in effect. Now, if the individual moved and we received forwarding address information, we either just change it if it's within the county, or if they move to another county, what happens now under new law is it automatically transfers the registration now to a new county. So you don't purge them, you simply inactivate them, and then they're re-registered in a new county. So there's a difference between being purged and being inactivated. So you're only inactivated when we receive information that you moved, and then if you miss 2 federal elections, then you actually get purged from the system, but you have to have been in inactive status for 2 federal elections. So I think what that statement refers to is, as long as we can verify through these legally required mail check cards that you still in fact reside at that particular address stated on the registration form, then you will continue, yes, to be registered to vote.
So may I ask, sorry, and So for example, this happened a couple of years ago, and I only remember it because it was.
You all are next, so you can sit down.
Yeah, sorry.
Feels good to stand, actually.
So just, I guess on the question, so a couple years back, the mayor's husband was removed from the polls, right? So what happened was, and this is, I want to sort of understand how this happens, right? So there was someone with a similar name who died in a different town,
Yeah.
and then he was removed from the polls, although he was not dead. There was no verification, and it wasn't even the same municipality. How would something like that happen?
That, to me, is human error, honestly. We encourage and we reinforce constantly with employees to make sure that all the information in obituaries is absolutely exactly mirrors what's in the registration, meaning date of birth, plus whether even to go above and beyond to verify if they're a junior or a senior. Because sometimes that's where human error comes in. You'd be surprised at how many people have the exact same name, same middle initial, and almost same exact birth date with one date off. So sometimes you do see human error.
Is there any type of verification for that? So like,
Yeah, we do have follow-up notifications that have to go out, although it's kind of uncomfortable because sometimes they are genuinely deceased and,
Yeah.
you know.
okay.
But we do have verification forms that are required under the law to go out, like confirmation cards, verification cards.
Okay. Very much. Thank you.
But just so you know, that can also be remedied through an affidavit ballot at the polling place.
Understood, and that's,
Yeah.
that's why one
Yeah.
of the FAQs that we talked about is, your name's not on the rolls, what can you do? And it's
Right.
affidavit ballot, because that can lead to confusion.
Absolutely.
And that's part of why this is being done. So understood, I just
Yeah.
was curious how that,
But it's human error.
thank you.
I want to ask a question, but it might go along with the, what you're getting ready to purchase, okay? But I'll ask it anyway. All right, so now, we had a really strange thing happen too. I don't know if it might have been the last election, where someone was voting in Colony and they were an Albany resident, and something screwy happened with the address. The address could be Albany, it could be Colony. The wife wound up in Albany, and the husband wound up in Colony.
Yeah.
Okay.
That can happen.
So now, instead of sending the person away, do you have the ability for someone to, wherever they go, okay? Take, for instance, that husband and wife situation, where the one actually voted at the wrong polling place and was on the rolls there, and the husband was not, okay? Do we now have the ability for people to vote anywhere? Yeah.
Yes. There used to be what they called right church, wrong pew, meaning you had to go to the correct poll site that you should have been voting at in order to vote by affidavit. But now, as long as you live within the county, you can vote from any polling place.
Well, that's only true for early voting.
For what?
For early voting.
For early voting.
Okay, that's only true for early voting, but that wouldn't rectify the situation that you're talking about specifically. The change in the law that Kathy's referring to is for affidavit ballots, where those races that have been relevant to you anyway still get counted. As opposed to in the past, if you went to the wrong polling place, you're out. Your vote doesn't count. Under a new state law, those races that are on the ballot that still would have applied to you still get counted. But you can only really see that, right, in county-wide races, state senate, congressional assembly, that type of stuff, if it's a larger jurisdiction. But I would have to say that it's on the voter to inform the inspector if they see an error. And if they do that, they can actually rectify it on the spot by, if it's a ballot on demand location that's servicing that particular polling place, then we can rectify it in the system. But if not, they should really call us so we can fix it immediately on the back end and tell them where they need to go. Because I could actually fix it in the system the day of the election.
Yeah. And, and Madam Chair, if I could,
Let me just explain why that would occur too. We're undergoing redistricting on several levels, okay? And it's no longer done manually, it's done by what's called geocoding. So it literally takes your address and spots it on a map. The computer software program does it now. You can't do it manually anymore because it would just take months. It would take a very long time. It's almost impossible to do. So they use what's called geocoding. So unfortunately, when you rely on computers to interpret data, if the latitude and longitude is off by a single digit or places them in a neighbor's yard for the same address, believe it or not, can actually put you in a different municipality. So that's what we're finding, is that there are certain addresses that are similar in multiple municipalities that are sometimes geocoding them to the wrong location, or we have a lot of voters who the district boundary actually runs through their backyard. So rather than, it places them where it geographically thinks the property is, rather than who they pay taxes to. So a lot of times the stuff gets caught during petitioning, during mail check card reviews, and we try to fix it to the best of our ability, but it's certainly an imperfect system.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I actually
Yeah, for example, the other day, we got a phone call from a voter who lives on Forest Avenue in Cohoes. There's also a Forest Avenue with the Cohoes zip code in the town of Colony. Now, the daughter was going to Cohoes, he was going to Colony, but it's the exact same street with the exact same zip code, so we had to correct something like that. It geocoded him in a different area than.
And Madam Chair, actually what brought about my recommending this was that I had a constituent who, based on the geolocation, her house was on the corner of a block, and so it moved her to another election district, which moved her polling spot, right? Just how it happens. So the frustration was she went to her polling spot not knowing, to her original one, they said you can't vote here and you can't have an affidavit. And she didn't know what to do. Now, that's not correct.
Right.
But that's where the miscommunication happened. Now, I obviously
Right, I recall
told
that
Kathy
incident.
this, Kathy fixed it on the spot.
Yeah.
It was easy enough, but that's why, like, knowing this stuff is important, so I just wanted to bring that,
Yeah.
that incident up.
And we're actually going to do a countywide mailing before the general election because we have undergone a redistricting and we don't think the yellow card is sufficient. So the primary is now very limited, so it's fine. It only applies to a very limited audience, and I'm sure they're hearing a lot from candidates, and we've even sent letters as well. But right before the general election, we're going to be sending out a nicer card than the yellow one that actually has more information and I think will provide greater clarification and what people could do, and that will occur.
And how many enrolled voters do we have in Albany County right now?
208,000 and
Change.
100, yeah.
Wow.
It changes by the day, so.
Thank you very much.
And that's active and inactive together. It's about 199,000 active.
Quick question for you. You talked about doing the mailing before the general election.
Yes.
A lot of the polling places have changed.
Yes, that's why we're doing it.
What happens for the people, I mean, we only have one primary in the town of Colony, but there are, in other municipalities, there are townwide primaries, that sort of thing.
They've actually received, like in Guilderland and Bethlehem, they've just received a mailing from us because we have conservative primaries in both of those towns. And
We just got a mailing from you too, but I
Yeah.
think it was the first one you were talking about.
Right, not the
That's the yellow
second.
mail.
Yeah, that's the yellow
The
one.
yellow one,
Yes,
yeah.
that's the one mandated by the state.
Yeah,
Does that have a polling place on it?
yes. It has your assigned town or district, it has your polling place, and it has your enrollment.
Because people's numbers are going to change too. The districts
Yes.
that they went to, and election districts and everything.
They
Right.
never remember that for the most part anyway. They just know where they always went.
Yeah.
I went
you know.
to town hall.
That's why we're using ballot on demand in larger polling places where we have multiple election districts assigned now, so they just can go to whatever table, rather than have to play a guessing game.
I have two very, I think, two questions that you can answer very quickly. Now, one is this. If there is no race within a particular district, are the polling places going to be open? Is every polling place?
No.
Okay.
No.
So if there are no races in June at a particular polling place, it will not be open?
Right.
Okay, all right. That was one question. And the second one is this. Are you finished with the election districts as far as the census is concerned and the redistricting, the redistricting is concerned?
Well, no, only
Okay.
because we are for this year's election cycle, but as you're well aware, the city of Albany redistricted their wards. And we had already gone past that point. So we have to once again redistrict the city of Albany only after this election cycle, prior to next year, prior to their elections.
So what about November? Will it change for November?
No, it will change after the November, because they're not on the ballot this year.
Wow. All right. Thank you very much. I think we'll take a vote now on,
Madam Chair, can I have a couple questions?
I'm sorry, Mr. Grimm, I didn't see you.
Okay, thanks. Is the affidavit ballot the fallback for any disagreement that the voter may have with the Board of Election Inspector? Because a lot of times they say, oh, I'm registered. They're not registered yet.
Yes.
So they always, whatever the disagreement is, here's your affidavit ballot and we're going to check it out later.
Yes.
Is that the fallback?
So, like as Matt said, someone should not have been turned down.
That's right.
Yeah,
Right.
that was a mistake.
And it happens. Home
Right.
inspectors only do this a couple times a year. Some of them are brand new. That happens. And that's why taking, again, the top questions relieves some of the tension and pressure, I guess.
Yeah, and
Yes.
it's interesting because when we go through the training, we make them go through hands-on experience with processing affidavits, and we always say to them, when in doubt, issue an affidavit. If you can't get a hold of us, if you don't know what to do, issue an affidavit.
How do we, I run into people all the time and say, "Look, you've got two people listed here, we bought the home from them." Or my daughter, she's not here anymore. And in one case last week, his daughter voted in another county and was still on the rolls.
Yeah.
So how do you, if you're what can I tell people to say, how do you get those names? Because I can't do it. How do you get those names off the,
Well, we send out a folder to each of the poll sites where they can make notes, and they can make a note in there that they were advised by the mother that the daughter moved out of state or whatever, and then we can look into that when it comes back and make the appropriate
We
changes.
do actually get a lot of notes
We do.
in those
But
binders.
somebody might just get a note just to get somebody off.
You're
Is there any
saying-
fraud in that,
You're saying like as a candidate, you're noticing this at the doors when
Yeah,
you're getting
yeah, but
signatures?
I cross out, because
Yeah.
they're no longer all the time, I get a lot of those.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell them, they should contact the board.
They should just contact
And
us.
say what?
Yeah.
That the previous homeowner, how do you know that they're telling the truth?
Well, we have to send out verification letters, and sometimes we call the voter if we have a phone number. You have to do some investigative work.
We would make them inactive,
Right,
and then proceed from there with follow-up to,
yeah.
Now, isn't another county, if they have somebody registered, aren't they supposed to check if they're listed, or is there a database for the other counties? Because
Yes.
his daughter had
Yes,
voted
there's
in
a-
another county and still was registered here.
there's a state database.
Yeah, the state database is flawed to some degree.
Yeah.
I've seen that where you have voters who are registered to vote in multiple counties, and I've tried to tackle this issue with them. I'm not sure why it is that they have what's called the duplicate search, and for the most part, they're finding them, but once in a while, we're finding ones that are still registered in 2 counties.
I mean,
If the state system is not catching it,
They
we're not
could
sure.
move here, and we register them, and if the other county doesn't, make them inactive or purge them as a duplicate, they're still hanging out there.
They can
Yeah.
vote in both counties.
Yeah.
Right, but the state system, which is called the Nice Voter System, should catch them, because it's supposed to do a database match on driver's licenses, social security numbers, date of births, and actual name. And so what we do is, prior to counting affidavit ballots and absentee ballots, sometimes we do like a county-by-county comparison
Okay, thank
to
you.
see who's voted.
Mr. Commissaire?
It seems to be a problem that we do not have enough material for these different situations that occur. Whether it be affidavit ballot, sometimes there's only 3, 4 in a suitcase. They reach for them, we have to call down there, we have to wait for somebody to come.
There
And
should-
sometimes it takes half an hour to 45 minutes. So that person is standing there waiting. And
They're
that
not
happens
looking in the
quite
right
often.
spot.
Yeah, there's
Because
at least 25.
We send 25 to
Yeah.
every district.
Well, I don't know that there's 25.
Well,
Also, a bigger problem is registration that takes place at DMV.
yeah.
That is constantly late. coming to you guys.
It is.
Yeah, and I
It's a
mean,
huge issue.
3 months, 4 months, it's behind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's a problem.
Some of them are
because
just simply not reaching us, and we asked the voters to send us the confirmation cards of the transaction. They've actually given us access to the state DMV system. So now I'm able to actually go in and search the voter lookup, and to see if the voter is actually in there with the registration. But who has really time to go to that extent, you know?
And you know, another thing, and you talked about it earlier, touched on it. In my legislative district, we have 3 streets with the identical name. It's a problem.
It is.
It's a problem.
It is. That's why we rely on, you know, elected officials and candidates to give us feedback when they're going door to door.
It took a number of years to get postal service to take a number of those streets from 1 to, let's say, 200. Nobody has the same address because what was happening, even 911 had a big mess on their hands. So, you know, whatever can be done.
Thank you. Mr. Clay?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
I got a motion from Mr. Clay. I got a second over here from Mr. Grimm. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Item 4, I'm sorry, was that on the printer? I skipped.
Yes, no, that was on.
Okay.
Now we're gonna skip ahead to the
Yeah.
printer. But I think we asked a lot of the questions about the printer.
Oh, do you want us to
It's
stay
item
on the
7.
printer?
No, it's item 7.
Stay there.
Yep.
Okay,
Stay
You
there.
can't escape.
okay.
It's authorizing an agreement with Conoco Minolta regarding the purchase of ballot printers for primary, general, and special elections.
So, you want to?
In 2013, we purchased ballot printing machines to save with the costs of printing ballots. We've saved the county over $1 million in those last 10 years on ballot printing. Those machines have reached their useful life, and we are requesting $153,672.93 to replace those with newer machines. We budgeted for this money, and it will give the county savings in the next 10 years.
Yes, Mr. Commissar.
What are we gonna do with old machines?
We're trying to trade them in as part of the deal and see what we can do with them. You know, but I'm not really sure they want them. So that's a good question.
Yeah, because then we have to let the state controller, I believe,
Yeah.
know that we have excess.
Absolutely, we do that stuff all the time, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
And I would second Mr. Bergdorf's motion.
Okay, I got a motion from Mr. Bergdorf. I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Just want to thank you all for
Thank
all
you.
of
It
the
was a
work that you
pleasure.
have
Thank
done
you.
over the past year. I know it's really been something, so I just sometimes, you know, you think that people don't appreciate you, but they do.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Next, we're going to take item 5, authorizing an agreement with Albany Housing Authority regarding a sublease of premises located at 155 Clinton Avenue in the city of Albany. DA Soares is here this evening.
Good evening, sir.
Hello. Thank you for seeing us. We are here requesting authority to re-enter our lease agreement with the Albany Housing Authority for our Community Outreach Center at 155 Clinton Avenue.
I had the pleasure of visiting that last month sometime. It's a very nice office, very nice.
Thank you.
And Mr. Graham does an excellent job there. I just want you to know that.
Motion.
So I got a motion from Mr. Clay. I got a second from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Have a good night.
Good evening.
Wait, hold on, after that.
All right. Back to item 4 is adopting a debt policy for Albany County.
Mr. Riley. Thank you, Mr. Riley. How are you this evening?
I'm doing good, Madam Chair. How are you doing?
Very good, very good.
Looking forward to this finishing up. So with speaking to Comptroller Rizzo prior to the meeting, there's still some confusion on one of the items that we were going back and forth on. We were going to have it, so I was going to request if we could table and have another follow-up meeting with legislative staff as well.
Did you say no? Okay. so we're gonna table this?
Well, I'm gonna request a table.
Okay, so we're gonna table
I
this.
I
at
would
the
make a
request
motion
of
at the request of
sponsor.
Mr. Riley and the comptroller. Sure.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, so I got a
Thank
motion
you.
from Mr. Peter to table, I got a second from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, thank you very much.
I'd just like to say something. I know the legislators wanted to see the AUD ahead of time. Can you hear me, Wanda?
No.
Okay. Thank you for letting me partake in this. The legislators asked for the AUD to be posted, or to be looked at before the state of the fisc. I sent an email, but there might be some confusion. I said, it's posted on the controller's website, me as the controller, on the Albany County website. It's posted. So I gave you what you asked for.
What's,
Excuse
AUD
me.
is what?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Say that again?
I sent a note to the people that were in the side meeting, that you asked to see the AUD, which the AUD is the financials that we present to the state at March 30th. You know what AUD stands for?
Annual update.
Annual update. It's called the annual update. And that's the information that I base the state of the fisc on, because we have to report to the state on April 30th. The legislators asked in that side meeting if you can have access to the data before I present the state of the fisc. I sent a note that said it's on the controller's website. Dave just mentioned to me it was confusing because he thought it was the state controller's website. It's on the Albany County Controller website. It's posted every year since I started. I'm very transparent, and it's 2022 is posted. So I gave you what you asked for, but I don't think you know that I did, because there's confusion when I use the word controller.
Mr. Peter?
No, and I understand that, and I just want to point out, a lot of the things that were discussed are making sure that it happens moving forward, regardless of who the comptroller is, right? And I think a large part of it is we've seen variances between comptrollers of the information the legislature gets. And so one of the things was, if we're going to codify or put into that, we want to make sure that it's not up to you to post it on your website, it's up to who's ever in the job. And I believe you have been fully transparent in the same way that we are trying to, in a lot of these things, say, okay, the legislature must by this time get it, or it be posted and we be notified. That's fine. And I don't think none of this is an attack on anyone, except if we're going to codify getting information, we want to make sure, regardless of whoever the comptroller is, the legislature gets that information. One of the things that we're also working on, for example, came from a lot of Mr. Grimm's questions, and I think they were good ones, which was, and he's not even looking when I'm giving him a nice compliment.
I know.
Like,
I'm taking
no, but, yeah, he's best.
There's people, they holler at me when I'm
No,
at a conference, I'm taking notes.
But one of the questions he often has when there's an RLA that requests capital funding is, was this in the capital plan, and where's the money coming from? We want to include that. Now, that's an Office of Management and Budget thing that they've agreed to do, because I think it answers a lot of questions, and people can look at it and do that before it comes there. This has nothing to do that I don't think the Office of Management and Budget will not answer our questions or tell us, but having it there and knowing that allows us to ask better questions and allows us to be better prepared. So again, I just want to point that out.
I'd just like to, if I could speak, I'd just like to let you know, it's public knowledge. It's posted in open book. Right after the AUD is submitted, it's posted on the state controller's website. I don't usually put it on my website, but if you want the data, you can get it.
I do think that what we were asking for was a snapshot of our fund balance, which is a little different than scrolling through it.
Right, but I have a concern with that, because that's why the state of the fisc presents the whole financials and not one number.
Right, but so if the data's there and we're asking for something specific, but you don't want us to see that data because you're worried about having the state of the fisc, that's sort of what we had talked about that meeting was you telling us how we could get that information a little beforehand so we could better follow along on your state of the fisc without specifically doing that. You said you'd give it some thought,
Yeah.
and that was the last we heard.
Okay, the giving you thought was really about the fund balance and the inter-fund transfer is when I said I had to give it some thought. So I think there was some disconnect of what you thought I was giving thought about. I sent a response to everybody on what I decided, and then nobody said to me, except for 2 days later, you sent me a note saying that, oh, by the way, Sue, we're still looking for this data. And then I sent a note right away and said, I posted it on the controller's
And
website.
again, the data we were asking for was a snapshot of that, which
You said, or a snapshot, you said you
Okay,
wanted
but
it.
if again, the idea is that the fund balance snapshot, so everyone knows, is what we're basing a lot of our decisions on. And so understanding that is a part of it. It's a snapshot in time, but it's something that's important to us. Now, we can go back and forth, but the other question was, when are you going to give the state of the fisc? Because it's been different times throughout the last 4 years. Sometimes it's in May, sometimes it's in June. So for example, it was May 11th in 2020, it was June 14th in 21, it was May 9th in 22, and it's going to be in June in 23.
Okay, you know why? You know why?
Sure.
Because your legislative meeting was on the beginning of May. I can't move that quick. So that's why, if I got 2 weeks, I try to get it done.
And the language that we had sent was that it should be the first meeting in May, or if it's not feasible, just request it from us. But we should know when that's going to happen. When was the first meeting in May this time?
May 8th, I believe.
May 8th? So you did it on May 9th, but May 8th is too soon?
It's too soon. There's a
But
lot
May 9th was
more,
fine.
okay, there's a lot more going on right now.
Okay, then that's,
And-
but why,
and I- so I
why
said
aren't we
that-
but then why aren't we being told that in advance?
That there's a lot more going on. I told you that I was doing the state of the fisc in June.
The idea is we should know when the state of fisc is going to happen. If you need an extension, request an extension. This is something that the county ledge is basing its financial decisions on, and it shouldn't be you tell us after the fact that when you're going to do it.
The county's basing their decisions on the financials from the AUD.
We-
First of all, they're not audited, okay? So it's a snapshot.
Understood.
We're taking a risk that you can't take these numbers as a fact until we're audited,
When we
okay?
asked Mr. Riley, at a financial thing, like, we're spending this, great, can we afford this? And Mr. Riley says, yes, that's a snapshot. Something can go really bad in the fourth quarter of this year and other things. Everything is a snapshot. If there's no value to the state of the fisc, should we just ignore it? But
You
absolutely there is a value, and we
I think
find a
so.
value to it. And so we should know when that's happening.
Do you know when the legislators postponed the state of the fisc and said to do it the next month because your agenda was full?
I believe that you requested it 4 days before that was, and we didn't have proper notice.
Oh, okay.
I mean, if you think that 4 days' notice is a fair amount to give to the legislative
That's
body,
fine.
that's also,
Hey,
no.
I don't want to argue with you, Matt. I'm just saying.
I believe you came here to argue.
No, I did not.
You know.
Okay, this is what, no,
Madam Chair,
stop.
I'd like to say something.
Okay,
Sorry.
hold, wait, let me
We're
say
getting
something.
down-
Let me say something.
Yes.
Okay, look. These conversations that we're having right now, we had it at that meeting, all right? Right now, there was a motion on the floor to table this, okay? At the request of the sponsor, all right? And so, it's,
It already passed.
and it already passed, all right? So,
The table.
I think he said there were some things that he wanted to take a look at. I want you to repeat what you said.
I think there's some things that we all need to take a look at and discuss.
Okay, so you know what? That's what we're going to do. That's exactly what we're going to do. I am Mr. Bergdorf, but we're not going to belabor this. I'm going to let you.
No, I'm not going to
No, okay,
believe
go
it. I
ahead.
have a request
Okay.
of the parties that are going to take a look. Would you please include our staff as well in these meetings? Because you're sitting here debating points where you are discussing policy, and I, to a certain extent, understand what you're talking about, and to other extents, I don't know what you're talking about. And to ask us to approve a debt policy that has been the basis of discussions of staff, in all these things, we generally have majority and minority.
So let me say
positions.
this, at the last meeting, it was called by the comptroller. This meeting.
Well, that's why
I
everybody's here.
just want to clarify that, Mr.
Well,
Bergdorf.
everyone's here.
Okay,
I'd like
What
to
I'm
clarify
asking-
that too, because
Okay.
I
That's
didn't
what
create the
clarify.
invitation list.
all right.
Okay, well, see, I don't know who created the invitation list, and I don't know who didn't create the invitation
Well-
list, but I know that our conference did not receive any representation, and therefore,
Point taken.
there's a issues relating to the county's budget
Debt policy.
policy, which Mark and I, as representatives of our conference, are going to have to vote on and make
That's
a
right.
recommendation to our peers, and we'd like to be
Although-
represented at those staff meetings.
I just want to also say, this all started because I had concerns, and I asked for a meeting to address those concerns, which every member has a right to do. And I would also say that I don't want to take this too far to say, if you have concerns that, if you go meet with a department head on a concern over bill, you have to invite our conference. Right?
No, but when we sit here and we talk about,
I understand.
you guys are gonna go into a room and come out with a consensus on something on the debt policy.
Yeah.
Where we don't even have the opportunity to listen or participate, that's sort of problematic.
But I would also say that this came about from questions from one conference. I'm sure you've had questions that you have not included us on, and meetings with departments and other people you haven't. I'm not saying that in the long term we shouldn't all sit down on this, but I'm saying that the way this started.
I'm not asking to be, that we wouldn't have invited anyone's private meeting, but this sounds, you got the controller, you got OMB, you got the chairman's office, you got the majority,
Agreed.
and it's coming back here, it's a big enough deal that we've been discussing it for 20 minutes, and, there are other people who,
Okay. To be fair, the council was not invited, but point taken. I've heard and I tried to be fair.
well, that's why I say, I don't care who's holding the meeting or doing the invites. Please include us as well.
But what we're gonna do right now, we're gonna move forward. He wants the table. We already took the vote. We voted it out, and we're gonna move on to the next item.
I apologize if you think this was adversarial, it absolutely was not. But I do want to be heard, that's all.
Fair enough, and we'll meet and we'll get this done.
Thank you so much.
All right. Item 6 is authorizing the distribution of mortgage taxes for the period October 1, 2022 through March 31st, 2023. Mr.
So
Reynolds?
this is more an administrative function, I believe. It's semi-annual. I think the last time I handled it, it's something that the county clerk sends directly to your offices. Simply, just for discussion purposes, the second page lays out, this is the distribution of mortgage recording taxes paid to the clerk, now distributed back based on the location of the parcels that were mortgaged.
Any questions?
I would second Mr. Camisso's motion.
Okay, I got a motion from Mr. Camisso. I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Town of Colony thanks you.
I thank the people in the town of Colony for buying all those houses.
All right. Item 8 is amending the 2022 Water Purification District budget, Beaver Creek Phase 2A project, and I believe Executive Director Angelo Gaudio is here this evening.
Thank you. Yes, we're requesting a budget amendment to accommodate costs or expenses associated with change orders for the Beaver Creek Phase 2A project. This is the project that we're doing jointly with the Albany Water Board. We were installing gates, and unfortunately, the wall was not configured as shown on the record drawing, so we had to have specialty fabrications done in a relatively short period of time. So the transfer amount would be coming from our fund balance to our equipment repair line so that we can pass those costs through the city. The city holds the contract with the contractor, who's Keller. So that's how the mechanism would be for paying the change order amounts. And the amount is $343,740. The District Board of Commissioners has already approved this transfer back in our April board meeting.
Any questions?
Motion.
I would second that.
Okay, I got a motion from Mr. Clay. I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Item 9 is amending the 2023 Albany County budget for the New York State Healthcare and Mental Hygiene Worker Bonus Program, vesting period 3.
So, Madam Chair, I'm actually going to hand this off to some of my colleagues who are far more versed in this than I am. This is Zach. I believe you guys also know Pat, but Zach's going to take the helm on this one.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and just speak up, because it looks like you're going to keep your head down. So look up.
Thank you, yep. We're requesting to amend the budgets for departments of Children, Youth and Families, Mental Health, Shaker Place, Rehabilitation Nursing Center, and the Sheriff's Office to accommodate the New York State Healthcare and Mental Hygiene Worker Bonus Program for its third vesting period. In this program, employers are required to submit claims to the state on behalf of qualified employees for bonus payments. The state then issues the bonus payments to the employers, who then distribute the payments to those qualified workers. That third vesting period was October 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 23. The total of the amendment is $113,041, which is lower than the first two vesting periods, which is because there was a rule in the program that qualified employees are only eligible to receive a bonus in 2 vesting periods or up to $3,000 across all employers for the life of the program. So many of the employees reached that limit. They received a bonus in the first 2 vesting periods, but the departments still are able to submit claims for the employees who are still eligible from the third vesting period.
Okay, can I just ask you, does anybody else have any questions? Because I just want to ask a quick question.
Why don't you go ahead, Mike can wait.
Okay, no, you go ahead, I defer, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is all state money. This is a state idea, and they set the rules, and then we apply for it based on their rules, and then we give out the money. The only question I have, are there employees that are a little sore? They didn't get the bonus. How does that work when you have employees who get the bonus and those who don't?
I'll defer that one to New York State. They set the rules, they set the program criteria. It's for, it's a healthcare worker retention bonus. I guess this is coming kind of off the back end of COVID. A lot of folks were burnt out. There was a lot of people leaving that industry and a huge worker shortage in that industry. So this is kind of to retain and potentially recruit people back into this specific industry. From a county perspective, I think we're doing all the best we can to make everybody whole through these union negotiations that are being settled. But yeah, it certainly is a gap in terms of who's covered and who's not covered.
So there are no performance criteria? It's just set on other rules other than the actual performance of the employee?
Retention, straight retention. So if you stuck with your employer for the previous 6 months and you stay with that same employer through the time that the employer submits a claim for payment and then receives that payment, you're eligible to receive that payment from the employer. They could hypothetically move on after they receive the retention payment from the county, but it's sort of like a well done for staying in this industry for the past 6 months.
We track, you say you get the retention payment, then they leave. I'd really like to know how many people actually are retained, because that's taxpayer money. I'd be curious how that works out.
We can follow up with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Are there any, you asked my question. Any other questions?
Is this only union employees that are entitled to this?
It's agnostic, union and non-union. It's by job title and functions done during the pandemic.
Okay, all right.
And my understanding is this does not become part of the person's base.
Correct.
This is a single payment and not counted towards retirement purposes.
Correct.
And that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, it doesn't continue going forward. It doesn't count towards retirement. It's
Doesn't
simply a
compound
bump.
over time.
Yes.
Is this, how many vesting periods are there?
A total of 5.
Oh, 5. So there's 2 more to come.
Yeah.
And so, let me just ask this question. Have the same people been recipients of, this was the 3rd one, at least 3?
No, they can only get 2 maximum.
Oh.
And that's life of the employee across all employers. The state of New York will only cut 2 checks per employee.
Okay, all right, very good.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
Mr.
make
Peter.
a motion if there are no further questions.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter, can I get a second? I got a second from Mr. Clay, all those in favor? Aye. Unanimous, thank you very much.
Item 10 is rescinding the conveyance of real property pursuant to resolution number 398 for 2019 and authorizing the conveyance of real property located at New Salem Road in the town of New Scotland.
Madam Chair, this is actually an unbuildable lot on Route 85. It's around the corner from a volunteer firehouse. They for years have been using it to have their American flag as well as a signboard out there with notes to the community, fundraisers, things like that, because that is the main road. We foreclosed on it. We had actually originally authorized it to go to the land bank. After discussions with the members of the fire company, they realized that they were still taking care of it, and they said if we would formally transfer it over to them, they would do some more intensive landscaping and kind of beautify it up for the neighborhood and continue to use
This
it.
is going to the fire department.
Why do we have to rescind these? Did we?
We'd originally authorized it to the land bank.
Okay.
The land bank didn't close on it because it wasn't, you know,
It didn't meet
it
their
didn't fit the,
parameters
exactly,
for
because it's unbuildable and things like
Okay,
that,
all
yeah.
right.
Motion?
I would second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I got a motion from Mr. Camiso and a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Item 11 is rescinding the conveyance of real property pursuant to Resolution Number 506 for 2017 and authorizing the conveyance of real property located at 343 First Street in the city of Albany.
So, Madam Chair, as stated here, this is for 343 First Street in the city of Albany. There was some confusion on the transfer to the land bank. Mr., what is his last name on here? Mr. Albarazin is paying the full amount of back taxes owed, $20,328, so we're going to rescind the transfer to the land bank. He's going to we'll transfer it to him. He'll move back in.
Madam Chair, this seems to be a cleanup of some paperwork, and it fits the policy, so I make a motion to do this.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter. I got a second from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
And item 12 is rescinding the conveyance of real property pursuant to Resolution Number 41 for 2017 and authorizing the conveyance of real property located at 17604 Stevens Road in the town of Knox.
Madam Chair, as stated, this is a parcel in the town of Knox. This will be going to the adjacent parcel owner. He had submitted a plan to clean up the property and then merge it with his own property. And I believe he is paying us $1,000 for that.
All right.
Is this?
I got a motion for, Mr. Got a question,
I have
Mr.
a
Camiso?
question. Is this a piece that was sold a while back and to whom?
Do you mean, did the county foreclose on it previously and then sell
Yes.
it off? I can look that up. I
Yes,
do
and
not know that.
somebody came in, if it's the same piece, with certified check in the amount of $60,000, and it was revoked and sold to another gentleman. If it's the same piece, would you just look at it?
I don't know offhand. I can look that up and
Sure.
get that to you.
Please.
Do you know about when that might have happened historically?
We can still do it.
Pardon?
Do you know about when that might have happened historically?
Looks like 2017
Okay.
possibly.
I'll do some research for you, Mr. Caruso.
You're saying somebody offered 60 grand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please check on that.
Is this the one that,
Hold it.
oh,
You sure?
I'm not positive, but
okay.
remember there was an abutting owner?
Yeah, I remember there was the 60,000 and then that got sort of waylaid and then.
Well,
But then I
if
remember
there's
we
a,
went for 66,000 later on.
was the
Didn't
parcel,
go. That guy never came in then.
was the parcel that you were thinking of maybe a hunting parcel?
Yeah,
This is for 0.3 acres.
that's the joining piece.
Oh, so you're saying there may have been some
Let's
stuff
take,
with
let's
the
just take a
abutting?
look at it to be
Okay.
clear on it.
To Mr.
Okay, Mr. Riley,
I will get Mr. Camiso his information,
so
but,
we gonna table this?
if you would like to, yes.
I think we can,
We can go forward, but it's only gonna take a day.
Okay.
Okay, all right then.
We just weren't sure if you're concerned
Yeah,
with
yeah.
I
it
defer
was.
to you, Frank, if you don't do it.
Right.
Well, I mean, you know, if he finds a discrepancy, he's gonna ask us to withdraw that.
Yeah, it can always be
Yeah.
Okay,
withdrawn
okay.
before the meeting.
All right, okay.
So under that grounds, I'd make a motion then.
Mhm. So I got a motion from Mr. Peter, I got a second from from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
There are no further items?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I got a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much. I got a second from Mr. Peter, and I got the motion from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.